Welcome to Peking. Today I'm joined by Anguel Hristozov, co-founder of Clidey and CTO of Clidey, a tool helping engineering teams onboard faster and share internal knowledge more effectively. We talk about why most devs onboarding is broken, how to scale team knowledge without slowing down, and what Anguel is learning building for technical users. Let's dive in. Please enjoy. Anguel, welcome to Peking. How you doing today?
Hello, Wyatt. Thanks for having me here, man. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well as well. Great day in Colorado. Actually quite hot here. Where are you calling from, or where are you sitting right now?
Yeah. So currently I am in Glasgow, Scotland, and I wish I could say it was a great day, sunny day, but no, it's been raining like mad. There's just no end to it. There's just no end to it.
Yeah, really no such, not too many great sunny days in Scotland, I've heard at
No,
least.
no, no. The ones that you do get, you have to take the day off, go outside and savor it as much as you can.
Yeah, no kidding. How many days? Like, is this just a couple times a month? Is it once a month? Is there like a sunny period?
So I would say that there's probably 1 month out of the year, 1 to 2 months, where it is, kind of consistently sunny. But once you get into like autumn and winter, spring, most of it is just rain, wind, gray. It's not bad actually. I make it sound terrible, but I kind of love it. There's something about it, that sort of relaxes me and just lets me focus on stuff. And then when there's like a good sunny day out, then that's like I've got enough reason to go out and take the day off. So
Yeah,
I
I've
can't really
noticed that. I
complain.
used to live in California, which had perfect weather basically every day of the year.
Hmm.
And moving to a state that has seasons, you
Yeah,
really appreciate each of the seasons. You know, a really nice
no,
day
that's totally
is
fair.
really
Yeah, yeah.
appreciated. So, where are you from? You're maybe not obvious, but I think obvious to me. You're not Scottish. But where are you from, and where is your journey taking you from where you started to Scotland now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I am originally from Bulgaria. I was born there. And then at a very early age, my parents moved to the States and I moved alongside with them. And I mean, it would kind of make sense if they left me, that wouldn't be very good. And then we moved to Chicago. We lived there for maybe 12 or so years, quite some time. Basically, I did my middle school and my high school there. And then once that's done, once I finished up with that, I decided to move to Europe, just to get a change of scenery, change of pace, see what it was like on the other side. And I lived in Denmark for about a year, and then I moved to Scotland, and I've been here since. That's like 7 years ago now.
Very cool. I would love to live in Scotland. I'd love to live basically anywhere in Europe. It's just very livable, as they say.
Hmm.
I spent a little time in Munich, and man, was it just an awesome chapter of my life. You are a co-founder of a YC startup, quite an esteemed title or honor to some extent in the startup world, at least in the United States. Talk about your origin story. How did you get to this point?
Yes. Okay. Cool. So, in my first year abroad, so when I moved to Denmark, I had no friends. I didn't really know the language that well. I mean, they spoke English, of course, but it still helps to know the language, the mother tongue, let's say. And so I spent a lot of time either at work or kind of by myself studying, right? It was a lot of like growth, let's say. And being put in a situation like that just sort of unlocked something in me where, I was like, okay, I want to do more than just like what was the coursework, what I was doing at work, right? And so I just started thinking of ideas. And then one of these days, one of my friends back from the States, we were just talking and I was telling him I wanted to do stuff. And he was like, hey, well, I kind of have a little bit of a half idea. I want to do used like a marketplace for buying and selling used cars, like a Craigslist, or rather like an eBay for buying and selling used cars, right? eBay's got like the guarantees, the money back. For some of the more expensive items, they got like the authenticity guarantee. So it wanted to be more of like a curated marketplace almost, let's say, so that you wouldn't really get like the amount of cars this guy has bought that have just broken, after like 2 months is ridiculous. So I kind of understood I really understood where he was coming from. We tried that. It didn't really work out. The time zone difference was kind of massive, and it was a fail, but it was still very cool. And it kind of taught me that, rather, it helped me see that this is like something I want to do. Maybe not the car idea, but just like building something, making it my own. And from there, I have, just been like trying to do stuff like hackathons, personal projects, projects with friends from uni, right? Like that's how I met my current co-founder. We met at a hackathon in our first year. We did some stuff there. And then we decided to, just continue talking, be friends, and here we are. Both went through YC, and yeah, now yeah, that's kind of the origin story. I could dive more into details if you'd like, but that's kind of a bit of a abridged version.
Yeah, so you started, I mean, you interned at JP Morgan and then you were a software engineer there. It
Hmm.
doesn't seem like a breeding ground for founder mentality. Did you kind of always have that idea that you were going to start something? Did you learn anything at JP Morgan that kind of brought you to this founder world, or how did you get to the point where you're
So
like, I'm going to start a company?
no, totally fair question. So if anything, like I learned a lot at JP Morgan, don't get me wrong, but if anything, it kind of reinforced, the resolve within me that at one point I want to do something. And I can't knock the JP time. I learned a lot, right? And both of my managers there were incredibly helpful, incredibly knowledgeable. And I think like actually working there helps now a lot when working with like enterprise customers because right those are kind of the same kind of mentalities and ways of working, right? Whereas if I didn't have that experience, we would kind of treat them like startup almost customers, and that's not the right way to do it, right? It's not gonna fly.
So Clidey was the idea. Have you pivoted at all? Has it always been the product it is? I mean,
No,
had it for
so
7 months now.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I just got excited thinking about it. But yeah, great question. No, so Clidey initially started as a cloud IDE. That's kind of where the name Clidey comes from, as well as it's also a river in Glasgow, right? Me and my co-founder Himang, we were both in Glasgow at the time. But Clidey is meant to be like a cloud IDE, right? So I'm not sure if you're aware of like Cloud9 or AWS bought it at some point, and now they have their own offering. But the idea was that you shouldn't need to have a beefy computer, like a MacBook or some Dell or whatever it is to be able to develop simple apps, right? It's not fair that JetBrains, their IDEs require like 10 gigs of RAM, let's just say. So the idea was that we could offload all of that to the cloud, right? Where within your IDE, you could also deploy, you could run your tests, just the whole environment just within your browser. You don't need to download anything. You just log in, it's all provisioned, it's all good to go. But I think that was a bit too grand for us. Second years, sophomores in uni, that was a bit too grand. And while we tried, and even after graduation, it just kind of failed to gain traction. A lot of VCs were like, "No, you guys, that's a little too much. It's a little too risky." And so we adjusted, right? We went from a cloud IDE to more of a DevOps platform, and now IDE itself is building DocuCode. And DocuCode is a way for teams to automatically generate and maintain documentation across all of their projects in their organization. Currently, people now will, they'll finish a project, they'll have to allocate some time afterwards to write the documentation. In a lot of big companies like JP Morgan, Palantir, this gets ignored or becomes, a second-class citizen. So we want to be able to change that, right? Because, statistics show that like developers will spend up to like 30% in a week just doing this. And that's a lot of time when you think about it, right? 30% is quite a lot of time for something that's kind of ignored. So that's why we landed on that idea, on this pivot rather. And that is what we are doing at the moment.
And when was that pivot? Was that when you got into
So
YC prior to?
yeah, so that pivot was when we got into YC, since now we were in an environment where we could like test ideas quicker. We could speak with a bunch of other people that are also, in the same situation. And it just kind of unlocked something. It just kind of made us think a lot quicker, a lot more precise, a lot more definitive, right? And that's why it was during that period.
And how has adoption looked for you? Obviously, you're just a year in, if that. What has your main focus been? Has it been product building? Has it been customer acquisition? What is your spot on your current roadmap?
Yeah. So right now we are doing a lot of pilots with small to medium-sized companies. Recently, we finished one with a company that was being acquired because in their use case was that they needed documentation for the company that was buying them out. So we're gonna continue talks to see if the new company would be interested. But right now we're doing a lot of pilots and tuning the output, the quality, because when you like I'm sure as you're aware of it, when you tell an AI, like ChatGPT or Claude to write text about something, it's obvious that it was generated by them, right? It doesn't sound like a human wrote it. And that is like going forward, even if the predictions are that, AIs will replace humans, this and that, people will still need to read something. So what we are trying to do is, alongside the accurate generation and maintenance, we're also trying to understand how to make it sound more like a human. And we've got like tons of great feedback on that, where it's like, okay, maybe you actually want to aim for a little bit less accuracy when it comes to like grammar and syntax. Maybe you want to purposefully throw in a mistake, here and there. You want to avoid, super definitive or super affirmative words as well, right? As the GPTs like to output. So
You say, sound less like an AI in the prompt.
yeah, I wish.
I
If only.
use AI for a lot of different writing, especially LinkedIn content, and you have to delete the M dash every time. You got to put the comma in. And
Mm-hmm.
you gotta put in a
All the
little bit of
emojis.
personal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very clear when people are using AI and just copy pasting and doing nothing else. It's pretty great. I guess I shouldn't just
Genuinely.
say AI as a blanket term. LLM would be more accurate. So, you're coming from this huge corporate environment. JP Morgan doesn't get much bigger than that. And now you are working by yourself or with a co-founder and maybe some other people. What is that switch like, and how would you have better prepared for it if you knew what was to be expected, or do you
Hmm.
feel like you kind of did everything right there?
So one of one of the biggest things that I noticed was that I can wake up and say I'm gonna do this today, and then I will actually do it. Versus back in the corporate world where, you wake up, you say you're gonna do something, but then you need to go get permission from, three or four different people. Someone's on vacation or something else broke, right? And then now you have to go fix that. So just the change of pace was is like sort of incredible. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I really enjoy, the much faster pace and the ability to just do what I want in this case, right? I decide, I'm able to decide like the priority of the stuff. I'm able to, take the feedback and collate it and understand it, in my way. And ultimately it's just the mindset of like, the customer's kind of always right, right? Whereas like in a corporate environment, you don't really get to make those kind of decisions. You just get handed down something. And, even if you try to like sort of push for it, unless you're in a higher position, that doesn't always work out.
The stark difference could not be more overstated. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, overstated. There's just such a dramatic difference moving from aggressively large corporate to startup. Are you doing the development yourself? Are you doing the business development yourself? Are you doing both? Are you doing a ton of like what does your day to day look like?
Yeah. So in my day to day is mostly development. My co-founder takes cares of, the customer calls, the client acquisition. He's a lot more friendlier than I am on the initial calls. And so I think it just betters our chance when he's at the range for that.
And
But
is it
we
just
both
you
just
two?
kind of like trade in and out. Sorry?
Is it just you two?
So it's just us in terms of co-founders, but we do have a couple contractors and we make very generous use of Claude Code.
As you should.
That
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
the beauty. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go on.
I think that's the beauty of what LLMs can provide. Is just going to make more builders. I don't think it makes less jobs total. I think it makes less jobs at one company, but you're going to have more companies. You're going to have
Yeah,
more opportunity.
I to add on to that, I also think it's quite a mindset shift to you are a builder, but with a tool like this, I feel like you sort of become a bit more of a, I don't want to say like traditional manager, but my workflows have gone from using, cursor with the agent mode and asking it questions and, the tap copilot mode to to Claude code, in a separate terminal where I give it the entire project and I tell it, I give it some info about how stuff works. And then I'm like, I need you to implement this feature. It has to work so and so and so. And then I'm like, give me a plan. Let me look through it. Ask me any questions you might have to help you understand this. And I find that has made me a lot more productive than just straight up, like agent mode and cursor, let's say, or just software developing. So kind of like the past week, I spent a lot more time just reviewing code instead of actually writing it, which I didn't really expect. I didn't really expect.
Do you think that's the best way to use the tool? Do you think a lot of people are doing the same thing? Other developers, founders you're talking with have a similar experience?
I think the best, it'll change. It'll change every week. But I
Yeah.
think I have seen I have seen a lot of developers do this. I have seen some people try and experiment with multiple Cloud Code instances at once, similar with like the OpenAI Codex, I believe it's called, in the Gemini CLI. Recently, I came across a tool called Conductor, conductor.build, I think was the website, that you just clone the repo, you tell it what you want it to do, and it will spin up the multiple Cloud Code instances and, communicate with them. So I think, I haven't yet tried it out. I've got to download it, but I think if something like that is able to happen where you can have them doing multiple things at once on, different like versions of the software, that I think that might be a big, that might be a game changer. I have yet to try it out though. I can't confirm.
How many people do you think you're doing the work of with these tools in comparison to what this would take 4 years ago?
I want to say maybe like 2 or 3. I feel like these tools at the moment are at a junior level, like a junior developer level, where at most companies that will be fine, right? Because I'm now kind of in the position where I have to execute fast, but I need to also make sure that, what the code isn't just, absolute trash. So I find that they're good, 80%, like up to 80% of a task. And then the rest, the 20%, I will go and, smooth things over, connect it here, connect it there, tweak some things just to make sure that in the future, if it needs to be updated, it can be. So because of this, there's actually like no desire or actual need to hire, more people. Like we have a couple contractors that are like doing some small things on the side, but like with this, it's like having like 2 or 3 junior developers. It's not too bad. It's not too shabby.
With the AI wrapper conversation, you're making a dev tool, so you're selling to people that are technical.
Mhm.
What is your moat? What is the sell on Clidey's product?
That is a very good question, and that is one that my co-founder and I spend every day just discussing, because it just seems like every day there's something new, something changes. One of the things that we've been pushing is that a tool like this needs to be primed for enterprise, right? And the moat there is to be able to, control like, or be aware, I think, at least in my opinion, is to be aware of all the data, all the stuff that's like flying around. Because what happens is, like for example, take JP. You'll work on a project, sure, you'll get the code for it, but there's tons of, like organizational knowledge or just knowledge that's been passed on over the years that isn't in the code. Maybe it's in some Confluence, maybe it's in some other document, maybe it's in someone's head, right? So a documentation generation, for example, doesn't then just become take all the code, understand it, build documentation. It actually becomes more of like a collaborative, I think, environment, right? Where you will have it generated, but then there's always going to be someone that's like, oh, actually, we do this here because of this. And obviously, you're going to want to note it down. So I think in this case, like having a moat isn't just doing almost like the bare minimum. It's trying to like understand what's coming in and out and like plug yourself directly into it instead of around it or, outside of it.
Are most of your ideas of the ideal customer not going to be in the tech industry? Do you think most tech companies will kind of build something themselves in this space, and then you'll go after non-tech companies because they're not going to be interested in trying to build this themselves?
That is something we've considered, where I've seen a lot of people. So again, I'll go back to Cloud Code. Like you can do like the instructions for it, right? It's like Claude.md or something. And I've seen people just add to that once it's done doing something, just go do a README file, just go create a documentation doc file for it. And I think that's actually a great workflow for smaller things or like solo devs, maybe even like smaller companies, right? Because it's a couple of you guys and the knowledge is shared and exchanged very quickly. But then you get to bigger companies, and I don't think it matters that much if they're like full-on dev versus not full-on dev, because technical debt is, technical debt. Knowledge is knowledge. People come and go, right? It's the same problems that plague any kind of company once they get up to a certain size.
You've mentioned that you're not the biggest fan of startup culture. You're not interested in taking VC funding. Can you kind of speak to that a little, and what kind of formed your philosophy there? And then in terms of funding, you can get these valuations that are enormous, and then you might not make it, and your company was worth $100 million, but you end up with nothing. Whereas if you don't take funding, you kind of own everything, and you can have a $5 million business and be doing incredibly well. So talk a little bit about your thoughts on startup culture and taking funding or not.
Yeah. So in terms of startup culture, I sort of have a bit of a difficult relationship with it. On one hand, I love the fast-paced environment. I love, that people are building stuff, trying and, breaking things every day, right? That's pretty awesome. You can't stagnate. You can't afford to stagnate, right? You always have to keep on learning and keep on doing. And, people that are like that, I respect the hell out of them. Like there's a couple companies in the YC batch that they never try to, be super hypey. They never try to do all the stereotypical LinkedIn posting, of like, oh, I'm not going to go into detail. And I love and respect the hell out of them because like, it's just like business. They want to see the product done and, they will work to get it done. There's no fluff. But on the other hand, I feel like some people sort of take advantage. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, or they inflate very strongly and it just kind of devalues what other people are doing. Like, for example, I'm not going to name names, but that one company that is trying to create a product for cheating on everything, the way they're like going about it and like, great for them that they've raised a lot of money, that's awesome. Like their social media game is insane, but the product came out and it was nothing more than, a fancy ChatGPT wrapper, let's say, right? People decompiled it, they saw. And it's just like kind of stuff like that I feel like really erodes or degrades the trust in like the whole. Like we shouldn't be here to try to con people, investors out of money or sell just an idea and then leave when it gets tough. Like we should actually be like trying to create something that maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it never matters, but you're trying to do it, right? You're trying to, maybe I'm just too honest, I'm not sure, but that's kind of my difficult relationship with it, where I love the fast pace, but I just am not a fan of people kind of inflating and making up details that may not be true.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
there was that AI company that was based out of India, and they just had developers working in the back
Yeah,
without telling anyone, and they were worth like $3 billion and
yeah, blows my mind.
just conned
Blows
a
my mind.
bunch of investors. And I don't exactly know if the founder made any money on that. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're throwing around millions and upwards of billions of dollars, there's going to be some people out there with bad intentions. And the cheating app, I think, definitely has some relevance in some people's work, like just the conversation assistants and stuff like that. They just jumped onto the most viral aspect of it,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is he rode the wave. Like he got hit by the wave of getting kicked out and he
yeah.
rode it as opposed to getting crushed by it. And so I totally understand your perspective. I understand his perspective. Some people like that big media firestorm. They like being in the middle of it. They try to make it as much as possible, make as much of it as possible. And then, there's a lot of people that build behind the scenes. And so I totally hear you and acknowledge the annoyance of social media chasers, people that just are all about the perception as opposed to the reality. And who knows, their company might end up being super useful, super valuable, but they have
We'll
probably
find
a
out. We'll
similar
find out.
chance as everyone else in the startup world.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, it's if anything, given this time next year there'll be somebody else, right? It's rinse and repeat almost.
Yeah, it never ends. So you were in the YC boot camp, so to speak, the process. Describe what that is.
Yeah, so it is basically the biggest thing they try to teach us about is accountability. So every week we have meetings with the group partners, and once a week it will be just my co-founder and them, and then the week after it'll be like a big group and them, right? So we alternate between talking just about ourselves versus discussing with every other company in our group. And these groups were small. They were like maybe 7 or 8. So, it got quite personal. We all got to meet everybody. We all got to hang out, do stuff, right? So you kind of know what other people are dealing with. And like, there's a big chance they're dealing with the same stuff as you. So like that was, in my opinion, like the best part of the whole experience was just kind of being in it. I don't want to say being in the trenches because, we're not at war, but it's just like being held accountable for what you're doing. And then also seeing other people sort of step up and, do the same for them and then for themselves. And then besides that, we would have events every week. We'd get notable speakers from big companies. We had the Cursor guy come and give us a talk, the Airbnb guy, and Brian Chesky. And that was YC. And then, a bunch of social events. But it was pretty much just like you wake up, you're working, maybe some event, maybe not. You're just completely focused on the product and nothing else. I won't lie to you, in those 2.5 months, I have no idea what happened in like the rest of the world. No idea. It was actually a bit frightening just how involved it is.
That's super cool, actually. I mean, that's what you would like to have more often, probably. Just blinders and less distractions. There's just so many apps and websites and things that are just trying to steal your attention from things that you want to be focused on. And we're kind of a slave to it, and to some extent,
Yeah.
we can't control it. I used to hire UX researchers for Meta. And these are PhDs, they're some of the smartest people in the world, and they're working on how to addict people to stuff. And same thing with
Yeah.
the sports gambling apps. You're having gambling use the Facebook model to get as many people into this incredibly toxic habit as possible. And we're just supposed to watch that happen. I've
Yeah,
seen
it's
people
a bit wild.
destroyed by
It's a bit
gambling.
wild. Yeah.
It's like,
No,
what are we doing? I think it's just part of the growing pains of technology hitting so fast. I think eventually we'll figure it out. I think the tide has kind of turned on the culture of social media. I think most people see it as a overall negative. I think there are, of course, a lot of benefits in terms of connecting people of similar interests
mm,
and keeping families connected to some extent. But overwhelming popular opinion is that it's bad for you now.
yeah.
And
I
I think
mean,
it's
it's
going to
about
come
time.
around and things figure themselves out.
Yeah.
At least we could hope. You don't want this dystopian culture of like Wall-E. You
No,
ever seen
no.
the Pixar movie Wall-E?
Yeah,
Everyone's
no, that would be something else. That would be
yeah,
something else if it turned
it's
out like
not
that.
that far off. I mean, you go on the subway, you go on public transit, everyone's on their phone, and we're maybe 5 years, 10 years away from some type of projection screen from your smart
Yeah, yeah.
glasses.
I mean, once we get to those chairs, that move around for you, that's it. We're done. We're
Yeah,
done.
we're cooked.
No, it's. Did you ever see about your recruitment? Did you ever recruit people that do like advertisements and stuff like that? Because I feel kind of in the same boat as like social media. It's kind of it feels the same for me in that way too. I don't know your thoughts on that.
It became this psychology thing. I think it's
Hmm.
maybe has always been that, but it doesn't become something about, charisma and how good you are at sales. It's how well do you understand human thinking and how
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
respond to stuff. And so you hack that, the human mind is very hackable, and you see people fall into things that they know they don't want to be into, but the lures are there. It's
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
Like you go on social media or Google, and there's just all of these sex images of scantily clad women, and you can't avoid it. It's just everywhere, and people fall
yeah.
into these dark traps, and it's just there. Yeah, that's the worst. Those ads. If you click on a news article and they have all these ads, and I
The
have
ads are crazy. Yeah.
I had ad targeting off. Like I don't want Google to know anything about me, so I have ad targeting off. And they still send all these things that are just terrible that I just absolutely don't want to see. So maybe I should turn ad targeting on, and maybe I'll
You
see
can't
something
win
that's
either way,
actually
right?
useful to me.
You
But
can't
every
win
time I
either
go
way.
on Instagram, I see a product that I end up buying. So it's so good. It's like that's exactly what I want, actually.
No, I can't confirm or deny this. I am forgetting a bit of my history here, but I vaguely seem to remember. Now, again, I would implore you to look this up after you're done. I'm gonna do the same, but I seem to remember reading a book basically saying that like modern advertising is based off the propaganda that was done, that was kind of that was done during World War II, basically. Like modern advertising is branched off of that. I don't fully remember the details, but like on first glance when you hear it, it kind of makes sense. Again, I would implore you to look it up yourself. But yeah, it
I mean,
just blows my mind that we still got like stuff like this. Like
yeah, they're gonna use what works. And so if the
yeah,
model that worked, and I mean, we use propaganda as this like term of antiquity when we're barraged by propaganda every single day.
that's
So
true.
it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
nothing's changed. It's still the same. The people are still trying to put what they want us to think out there, and it works. People are all up in arms about stuff that just has nothing to do with them.
yeah. I mean, now they're just called influencers. So
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's another paid influencers are just terrible. There is more opportunity now to find the voices that you care about, though.
hmm
You can find the voices that are interesting to you and that do have independent thoughts. And if you can escape the mainstream, which is possible, you find people that you like. And it doesn't need to be an echo chamber. You can listen to multiple people with different opinions. That
yeah,
ability is more than ever. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be very difficult to get in contact or hear people of very anti mainstream thoughts. Maybe you could have that conversation with a neighbor or a friend, but you wouldn't hear it on the radio.
mm-hmm.
You wouldn't see it on TV. So that's definitely
No,
changed a
yeah,
lot.
I do love that aspect. Although I feel not many people sort of recognize that.
Yeah,
So
I
like
would agree
for
with that.
example, my dad was I'll just tell you a quick story and then we can move on. But for example, my dad was born in Bulgaria during the time, of like the Russian, Iron Curtain, let's call it. And so all the information that was like going in and out was very, like, very tightly controlled, and there just wasn't much coming in and out. And once that fell, once they got exposed to more, like he just tells me just how quickly things changed for the better. People spoke up, people saw different opinions, different ways of like doing stuff. And like to this day, because of like that, I will go and, because he's told me about this a lot, and, it's within me to like go and find, like differing opinions on like the same matter, see what they say, see if they make sense, etc. But then you see a lot of people just lock into one person only, and it's kind of frightening that as easy as it's made it for us to go find, this kind of stuff you talk about, it's equally easy to just pigeonhole yourself into one thing.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it's a wonderful place though. The internet is a wonderful place. I do love it. All this we're talking about it, but I do love it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's a overall positive for my life, at least.
Yeah.
I'm doing things that I never could have imagined that I'd be able to do, and it's only going to get better. I think to some extent you take personal responsibility for your choices, and you have to avoid the things that try to hook you in that are negative, and you go after the things that you want to do and are positive. And there are barriers you can put in place. Like I have to delete all the apps off my phone that I know I'll use too often, like social media apps. I just deactivated my X account. It's just too much brain rot. I don't need to be up to date of every single world activity that happens up to the very second that it happens. It's just not important. I don't need that. So I'll probably go back to it. I think it's an awesome app. I think it's so useful for bringing conversations to the town square. But when I'm trying to build a company, it's such a distraction.
It really is. No, it's incredible. Yeah, I agree with you.
You have a industry hot take that I really like, because I am right there with you about the tech industry and trade jobs. What do you see as the future of work?
So in my eyes, if we keep on, pushing for AGI, keep on for tech to be, as automated as possible, I feel like we will eventually push ourselves out of it completely. And we will get to a point where we don't understand how it works. We don't understand what's going on, but it's there and it's doing stuff. And I'm not saying like humanity as a whole will regress, but I think the focus that society has placed on, STEM jobs, like science, technology, et cetera, for like the past 50, 60, 100 years, let's say, I think that will completely, dissolve, and everyone's going to be like, go be a plumber, go be an electrician, like stuff like this. Because if you end up creating, like some tech that at one point people won't understand, you're still going to need to figure out how to maintain it. And I don't know, maybe I've been playing too much, too much Warhammer, but I just feel like trade jobs, stuff like that, people working with their hands is going to make a massive comeback if we keep going down this route. Maybe it'll be for the better, maybe it'll be for the worse, maybe times will be simpler. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
It is fun to think about, though. People try to act like they know what it's going to happen. It's like you can't predict the future. No one knew what the car would do for the world. No one really knew what the internet would do for the world. No one knew what the mobile phone would do for the world. And all these different industries pop up with these new technologies.
Yeah.
You just can't predict it until it happens. But it's fun to watch, except for me, I'm using an AI recruiting tool, and I see the writing on the wall. This career has a few years left. It's not going to last. So I literally have been talking with my brothers, and my brother-in-law starting to trade together and getting after it. I have enough money in my investment account, my retirement account to be somewhat secure if I can make just enough to pay for daily living. And so it's like, maybe I should explore something else, because it really is so good. Like, if there's enough compute and enough dollars you want to spend on credits for contact information, I mean, that's how I reached you. I had a bunch of emails go out to people like yourself, and it's all automated pretty much. It's very easy to put a massive campaign together, and it's not spam, it's relevant. I want to talk to you. I feel like YC founders are happy to tell their story as well, but it's just so fast now. This used to be the job of a lot of people, and you can do it in 5 minutes. And so, yeah, it is the trade world. There's so many open jobs. and people aren't filling them. And so I think
No,
I
and
totally agree with you there. I think it will make a massive comeback. And corporate jobs just don't have a lot of fulfillment either. If you're not
no,
building
no.
something exciting, if you're not building something that you want to use or you think really values the world, most people don't like their job. And so I think I could be wrong, but it seems like blue collar work is very fulfilling because you see the product of your labor more so.
Yeah, and you know what's always been kind of interesting to me is that a lot of people make the excuse of like, oh, it's on YouTube, you know, go look at like how to fix a pipe. But you do it and it still breaks, right? And it's like, and that was like pre ChatGPT and pre like, you know, all these AIs. And now I feel like people are gonna have even less of a desire to go and look something up or like really drill down into the details. Where if they're like on ChatGPT and they're like, I can't fix it, you know, and ChatGPT is all affirmative, like it's okay, don't worry about it, you know, then they're just not going to, right? And it's gonna make like stuff like this even more in demand. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but
Yeah, I mean,
mm,
YouTube helps to a certain extent, but it's like a non-developer using Claude. Like, I'm not going to build an incredible tech product if I don't know how to code. I can build the beginning, but I'm going to need someone that knows what they're doing to build
yeah,
the
it's a fair
end
enough. Yeah,
product. Last interesting point that I kind of wanted to cover, your personal interest. You're very interested in wristwatches. How did that start? And what's this about Saddam Hussein?
right. Okay, so I'll get to that. But it just started as I was on eBay and I was just trying to find a gift for a friend, you know, I was just looking at various things. And I happened to stumble across watches because I knew they were a watch fan. And I started looking, I'm like, you know what? These aren't that bad. I kind of liked it. So I ended up picking one up for myself. And then, you know, because it's on eBay, you buy secondhand, a lot of stuff's cheaper. You get access to a lot of options versus like going in store and everything's marked up quite high. And there was just something I really resonated with. The fact that they were like secondhand, you know, it had some history, right? So since then, I haven't been able to stop myself. I'm at like 30 watches and plus. Like I'm not lying. Like I got one just today. Like this one is today. And this is a Citizen U2000 something something, I'm forgetting. But what I really like about it is that it mixes digital and analog together, right? So I've discovered that a lot of Japanese manufacturers like Seiko, Citizen, maybe Orient to a degree, they have models that are, you know, they have the normal analog hands, but then they'll also have a digital section, right? Where you can see like the time, the alarms, date, and I don't know what it is, but just that mix really, I'm a massive fan of it. So now, yeah, I'm like 30 watches in, 3 boxes deep. It doesn't stop. I did also pick up one of those Casio ring fingers, ring watches. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're pretty much the little ones that like fit on your finger. And it's an actual watch. It's crazy. It's an actual watch. Yeah.
I've not seen that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I've heard the Aura ring.
So about the Saddam. Yes. So I was on eBay and one of the recommended was this beautiful, like all gold Longines or Longines from like the 60s. And I didn't look too into it. But then I'm like, wait, why is there a face on it? What is this face? Because I don't read the description. I just go by picture. And then if I like the picture, I see what it is. I look and I'm like, commemorative, you know, like 1960s Longines, Saddam Hussein edition. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I look into it and it is actually him. You know, it is, you know, the man himself, so to say. And I did some research. Turns out that he would commission watches to be made with his face on them to give away as gifts, you know, to like reporters or other, you know, nationals that would come into his country and to his own people, right? Turns out he's not the only leader that did that. You know, you can find watches with you know, like other people, you know, let's say throughout history. And about the watch, it is quite beautiful, and it didn't work whatsoever. And I was like, oh no, what happened? So I took it apart. Like, this is a side note to the hot take. I really enjoy working with watches, you know, taking them apart, fixing them. So I feel like maybe that's anyways, I'll move past that. And so I took it apart and I saw that there was water damage on the movement itself. So I went online, I found a spare part for it. I went to the local watch store and I'm like, how much would it cost to, you know, fix this? Because I didn't want to damage it. And they quoted me like $200, you know, dollars. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that here. So I got the watch, I got some parts, some like a screwdriver and I fixed it myself. Took me a day. I almost broke the hands, almost bent the hands, but it works. It's beautiful. I took it to a party as soon as they fixed it. And once they saw it, they wouldn't leave me alone. The guys at that party really got a kick out of it.
That is
So
hilarious.
yeah, that's one of the more random ones in my collection of watches.
That's quite a piece.
Yeah, it's
Awesome. that covers a lot of the questions I have just about your story. I think is super interesting. Really excited to see what you can accomplish. Obviously, you're very early on in the journey of building Clidey. What is something that you want everyone to know about Clidey, or maybe just your, ICP, the people that would be interested in a product like Clidey? What do people need to know about it?
In general, I just want people to know that if it's a Clidey product and they ever have any issue with it, they can just come to us directly. Because we are genuinely all about the product. Like, we spend so much time, just like trying to understand, like, what do we do here? What do we do there? We get some bad feedback. We try to fix it as fast as possible. Something broke, we fix it, right? It's like my co-founder and I, like, we're trying to create a lasting business. We're not trying to create an exit for us, right? Like a lot of startups will exit 2 to 3 years. People have plans to sell. Like, we don't have plans to sell. Like, we're in it, right? So we will work with people for as long as it takes. We will try to make it just, I know that sounds pretty generic, but it's like, it is genuinely something that, like, I am proud to be doing, like something that I can call myself, alongside with my co-founder. And yeah, like I stand behind it. If there's any issue, we will fix it, and that's
Also,
what they
yeah, I
should know.
mean, it doesn't need to be complex. Some business lessons stand the test of time, and I think that's one of them. Actually, I did have one last thing I wanted to talk about. You use Meta Quest to hold virtual meetings. I actually used to do that with my team as well. We would
Oh yeah,
meet in those meeting rooms, and it really is silly. It's
it's so
funny. You
goofy.
get kind of a
It's
headache
yeah.
after 40 minutes.
Yeah. It's so goofy. Like, for us, the biggest problem is, so the actual like Meta meeting room, from Facebook doesn't seem to work. So we have to find alternatives, and they exist. But it's just kind of funny that, like, kind of like the main thing that it's meant for just doesn't seem to work. But it is a lot of fun.
We got ours to work. We had the older Quest. I think we had the Quest 2. I haven't tried the
Oh, okay,
newer one,
okay.
but
Yeah,
it
it might be
was
like a 3 problem. I'm not sure.
it was very kind of novel is the
It
best
is,
word.
yeah.
And then it's like, okay, why are we still doing this after like a year? We did it for a year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of time in VR, but I never did anything else with it. We played like mini golf once.
Hmm.
I did boxing once or twice, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really have a stickiness to it. I don't know what it
No,
is. Maybe it just needs to get better.
yeah, I think, like, I think just like the hardware does need to improve. I think for what it is, it's pretty great. But
Yeah.
the games don't do it really for me. Like, I went on a couple games, and it's like all 12-year-olds, and I felt like I was back playing like Call of Duty on Xbox or something. But I feel like one big potential for it is, like, like graphic design, maybe like 3D design. Like, I think, like, like recently I came across like a real-time model that could change your video output to whatever. So it's like, basically, you take like an LLM and you tell it, I want to be looking at this. This is the video, but can you actually turn this into, like, let's say you focus it into your room and you're like, turn this into like a playground, right? Like a park, and it does it in real time. And I was pretty impressed by that. And I feel like with these like headsets, like, you could get to a point where you're just like talking out loud what you want to see, and it'll generate it for you. Well, I'm not sure if it'll ever go in that direction, or if you take even like Neuralink, you can just think of it and you'll see it. Like, I think there is a lot more potential. The hardware just has to get better, and maybe like
Yeah.
the medium, because the headset is too bulky. It's way too
Yeah,
bulky.
totally agree with you. I haven't tried the nicest one. They had a premium model, and then Apple obviously has their premium
Mm-hmm.
model as well. I haven't tried either of those.
Apple
I
is
think,
stupid expensive.
yeah, they're so expensive. Awesome. Well, really fun conversation, Angel. Great to meet you. Great to talk with you about Clidey, and very excited to follow your journey. Where can people find you, and how do they learn more about Clidey?
Yeah, why? So we're just Clidey.com, or if they want the product itself, DocuCloud.com.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on Peaking. And if you hit another milestone where you want to come on and announce, I would love to have you back.
Cool. Thanks so much for it. This was awesome. This was great. Thank you.
Good deal.